Joining us now to have a chat on the unfolding developments in Guinea is Ovigwe Eguegu, a policy analyst at Development Reimagined. He specializes in geopolitics and geoeconomics, with particular reference to Africa in a changing global order. Ovigwe is also a contributor at Foreign Policy Magazine and the Africa Report. Good to have you join us on Newsday this morning, sir. Now,
thank you for having me.
Great. Now, just with reference to the coup, the group that took over and are currently holding power were described as mutinous soldiers. So perhaps you can help us understand to what extent are these group representative of the broader military organization? Are they a faction? And how did this really come about, to your knowledge?
Yeah, so the coup, from what we've seen on reports, it was led by Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. He is the head of the Guinean Special Forces, so which is like a special unit to carry out special clandestine operations. So that also comes with a specific broad range of skills in terms of combat. So that was why you could see they were able to make their advance on the presidential palace and seize power in a very short amount of time, even though the wider Guinean military is split. Because even while they were on air on ROTG, that's the Guinean broadcasting network, announcing that they've seized power, they were still gunshot heard in Conakry, showing which is evidence of a split between the army. So it's not like you had in other countries like the recent one in Chad, where the army was just behind Muhammad Debi. So in this case, you have an army that is partly loyal to President Alpha Conde, and to a faction also loyal to Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. So it's because the coup plotters already have the president, they have an advantage, and they've declared the constitution is dissolved, and then government also has been dissolved. So it's all a mix of dissatisfaction in the military, given Conde's policies, recent policy rather, and also the fact that he tweaked the constitution to extend his rule. So there are other dynamics at play. We can go into foreign interference and all of that. But if we're looking at Guinea from within, you just cannot take away the fact that when Alpha Conde made the move to increase his own salary and decrease the salary of military officers, that definitely stirred up discontent, in the country. That happened after he even extended his rule beyond the two-term limit by the constitution. But he changed the constitution last year and won the election. So these are some of the internal factors that has led us to what we have today.
Okay, I also wanted to ask, exactly how did the coup unfold? I mean, you explained that he's an officer and has quite special skills in combat, etc. Can you give us a brief overview of how that might have unfolded and how they took over how they were able to get the president?
Yeah, so Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya actually is not just a Guinean Special Forces officer. He was actually in the French Legionnaire for several years and served in various countries from Djibouti to Afghanistan. So he's a very well experienced, military officer. So it's not just because of his skills he's learned in Guinea. So many people might argue, why would a former French soldier be admitted into the military of Guinea and even given such a very key position? But that's another matter. But if you look at the situation now, he was able to use his skill and maybe stir up discontent that has been caused by Alpha Conde's policies to push against President Alpha Conde. And there's lots of talk about his experience in the French army might be, while France might be suspected to have backed this coup, given the fact that President Alpha Conde himself, has had a very tumultuous relationship with Paris in recent years. He hasn't visited, Paris in over 2 years. That is very unusual for, presidents of French-speaking countries or countries once colonized, by France. We always see that very close relationship. So I've even heard rumors that Alpha Conde was even sending, delegations to Paris to actually work on the relationship, with France. But apparently, that did not come to fruition. Where we are today now is that he is in a very precarious position. Even if we have the UN, AU, and even Nigeria condemning the coup rather, but the military officers led by Colonel Doumbouya already have him in their possession, and that is serious leverage that they can use, to shape the next few steps of their agenda.
Okay, I know you mentioned that France may be colluding, but these are all rumors. Nothing has been confirmed. I was going to ask you what kind of feedback we've had from the international community from the French end, but let me leave that for now and address the issue of the constitution. You said Doumbouya has essentially declared it invalid. I know that Guinea has had previous coups in the past, but how radical is this particular coup? How is it seeming to be at the onset?
Well, I think it's just like you mentioned, in 1984, after the death of Sekou Touré, the military took over. Then it was Lassana Conte. And then he ruled the country from 84 to 2008. After, on his demise, when he died, then there was another military takeover before we had the elections that brought Alpha Condé in 2010 into office. So it shows that Guinea has this history of political instability, and Alpha Condé is the first sitting president to actually be removed via coup, even if we had two incidents in the past. So it shows there's still a lot of I would say inability to actually trust in the democratic process in terms of transition. This is something many African countries are really working towards. We just saw a peaceful transition in Zambia. We've seen several, even in Ghana and other African countries. So we really hope that these transitions are actually, carried through according with the spirit of democracy and in accordance with the constitution. But in this case, unfortunately, that it's not, it's not happening in Guinea, and I just think it's something that particularly ECOWAS and African countries will have to work on to see how we can strengthen our resolve and commitment towards democracy and democratic practice.
I also wanted you to comment about the feedback from the international community, just as Ekene was saying earlier on. What is it that they have to say, especially those, especially the French? And what is the situation on ground with the average Guinean citizen? Are they happy with the way things have unfolded, or are they scared for the way things will unfold in the future?
Yeah, let's even start by looking at what happened yesterday. So while the coup was going on, even before it was confirmed, there were reports that Guineans in opposition areas were already celebrating just at the thought of a coup being carried out. So that shows that there's support, or that showed initially that there's support against his ousting. And then when it was confirmed that the coup has been successful, or at least they've taken President Condé into their custody, we saw that the Ministry of Defense even said that there should be a curfew, but that was not obeyed by the population. People came out and they were celebrating. Of course, like I said earlier, parts of the military still loyal to Condé were still fighting, trying to at least defend the regime or stage a counter coup as it were. But that's not been possible. But if you look at how the international community has received it, in terms of the United Nations and the African Union and Nigeria in particular, they've come out to condemn the hostile takeover because while Alpha Condé extended his rule, he did so by tweaking the constitution. So he didn't refuse to step down, neither did he lose the election, even if we can contest if elections were free and fair, but he did not lose the election. So it's a bit of, he has more support in his direction because at least he tried the constitutional approach as opposed to just staying in power. He wasn't the only one to do that. President Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire also did tweak the constitution to extend his rule for a third term. So these things happen, but it's not enough to unseat a president, particularly where they made the effort to follow due process. So that's why you see the condemnation from the United Nations, from the African Union, And I suspect that you see the French also will condemn this as well. So just to go back to what you said about France, I wouldn't say the French are behind it. I was just painting the context to show that because of the relationship, that he didn't have with France, or the poor relationship, that definitely factored into Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya's calculation, because we've seen cases where, if you rise up against the sitting president, and if that president enjoys good relationship, France worked with the president to repel that attack. That happened in Gabon. But when they know that there's no good relationship between France and Alpha Conde, of course, they will know that the French side will not be, very enthusiastic to supporting Conde's regime. So that's the picture in terms of, international powers and international system looking at the case in Guinea.
Okay, thank you, Ovigwe Eguegu, political analyst. Thank you for giving us much insight on this particular developing story.